I've spoken to a lot of you in the comments, sharing your stories and your testimonies. And the reason why these comments are important, you sharing what you've been going through is important, is because it doesn't just tell me that I'm not alone. It tells everyone else reading that they are not alone. So when you share what you've been going through and how you've been managing, how you've been dealing with this, right? I want you to understand that other people are reading this, and your comment might be what someone else needs to read to understand that they are not alone and to help them feel inspired and empowered. And this is what this is about. So keep sharing your comments, keep sharing your stories, like this, subscribe so it can get out there to more people. I was praying the other day, right? And I was just being still, kind of just in the presence of the Lord. And a lot of the times when I'm going through something, I will just focus on that thing. And, I'll go into warfare prayer, I'll go into prayer and I'll just focus on that thing and will it away, I'll kind of just try to push it away from me as much as possible, right? But I'll be focused on whatever the issue is. And while I was just being still, just in the Lord's presence, I got this thought downloaded into my mind, and it was, you are a magnifying glass, and where your attention goes, your energy flows. And we all know this to be true. I mean, how many times have you thought about someone and then they call you that day, or they text you that day? Or maybe you're looking for something for so long and you're getting frustrated, right? And as soon as you stop looking, there it is. So we do have some type of relationship with energy and where our focus is, and also our intent, our state of being in relation to this thing that we want or whatever we're thinking about. There is some relationship to that. And sometimes the way you feel can push something that you want away, or it can bring it to you, depending on your state of being. And what's interesting about this is I was thinking about oppression and gang stalking in particular, right? And I realized that gang stalking creates a shadow, like a cast over your life. It creates this atmosphere of darkness that doesn't allow you to see a future where this thing, this problem isn't interfering in your life anymore, right? Like you can't see a future without being gang stalked. You can't see a future of yourself not being oppressed, not being held down, right? Not feeling victimized by the world. And a lot of the times it's witchcraft. And with witchcraft, your agreement, your cooperation is the power source for the thing that is binding you. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, there's various ways that you can come into agreement with something in the spirit. It could be generational. It could be in your blood. Nothing to do with you personally, just something that runs in your DNA, in your blood, right? It could be in your dreams that agreements are being made, or soul ties. And it doesn't just have to be sexual soul ties. It could be your friends, the people you used to hang around with. It could be lust. It could be fear, organizations, gangs, anything or anyone that you have a strong emotional tie to, you have a soul tie with. Now, soul ties aren't all bad. There are good soul ties, but in this instance, soul ties can be used as an open door to gain access to you, an open door to darkness. Even just you agreeing with something, right? Being in agreement with something can create a soul tie. The point is, there's a lot of ways that doors can be opened. And while we're in the world, we encounter a lot of people, a lot of situations, a lot of things happen that create these open doors, these strong emotional ties, and these bonds and these open doors in our lives. And this is the reason why when you get saved, it doesn't just stop there. There's a lot of things that happened before you got saved that now you have to deal with. Now you have to gain deliverance from, right? Now you need to break those chains, close those doors, wipe those things away, and remove those enemy strongholds in your life. But what I want you to understand is you have the power to decide. Christ gave you the power to decide whether or not this gang stalking thing has the power over you. I'm not saying that if you just decided right now to get up and decide to walk in victory and that none of this stuff has power over you, that everything will immediately change. No, you have to persist. You might still go through a season of testing. People still might try to mess with you. But the truth is you have the power to respond instead of react. You get to choose now. Because when you operate in a spirit of fear, especially irrational fear, I'm not talking about a car coming and you run across the street, because that's a rational sense of fear. If you don't move out the way, you're going to get hit by something, right? So that's rational. But irrational fears like fearing going somewhere or seeing someone, things like that, you're not supposed to operate in that. You're already in a state of spiritual vulnerability, because he's not giving you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind. So at the very least, if you're operating in a spirit of fear, you're fearing going to places, you're fearing seeing people, you're just irrationally in fear, you've given yourself over to a spirit of fear. And that door is open. And if that door is open, then you are spiritually vulnerable, because that is not how you were created to operate. And so it's no wonder that people have health issues like heart problems, heart palpitations, trouble sleeping, stomach problems, right? High blood pressure, diabetes. All of these things come from you operating in this heightened state of stress. You weren't created to operate in that way for years and years and years and years on end, right? That's not your design. But when you embody the truth that the power of God is within you, the power over the enemy is within you, when people try to trigger you, you're not triggered anymore. You choose how you respond, because you understand that the driving force behind all of this is in the Spirit, and He's giving you all the power over the enemy. So when you're struggling in life, when things aren't working out for you, when you're struggling financially, when you're going through things, when you feel like there's nothing left for you, there is no government, there is no hater, there is no bullies, there are no groups, there are no people on this planet that have the power over you. And once you understand that, once you believe that and get it inside of you, you are unstoppable. Because there's nothing the enemy can do through these people, through these vessels, to crush you, to crush your spirit. And that's what all of this is about. And that's what Christ came to give us, that ability to hope, that knowing, that understanding, that truth, that there is nothing you cannot overcome, because He overcame everything, and so do you through Him every time. So when people want to make you feel like a victim, when you feel like your life has turned out as nothing, and maybe everything in your life literally is reflecting that back to you, you still have a choice in that situation, whether or not you identify with Christ and His victory, or you identify with who the world tells you that you are. And this is the thing that completely transformed my life. Because when I couldn't see where my life was going, when I had nothing, when I couldn't see where things were going to go for me. You know, when you look into the future and you don't see anything. I couldn't see where my life was going, when I was trying everything and it wasn't moving. I didn't understand why. I was prayerful. I was trying to pray. I was moving forward. I was trying to do the right thing, and it just did not make sense why things were not moving forward for me. I understood what was going on here. You have a choice. This is about crushing your spirit. And the minute you say to yourself, this is my life, nothing can ever change, nothing's ever going to get better, that is when you're trapped. But even in that trap, even in that cage of thinking in that way, you still have freedom. Because Christ said, he who the Son sets free shall be free indeed. So it doesn't even matter whether you've agreed with it in the past, whether you've identified with it in the past. You still have a choice of freedom. You still have a choice to persevere. You still have a choice to overcome. Every moment of your life, you have a choice. What are you agreeing with right now? It was in those moments that I had the choice. What am I going to agree with? You know, am I going to say that I'm crushed by the world, that I'm blocked by the world, that nothing's ever going to happen for me? I can't move forward. My life isn't going to get better. I have to just settle for nothing. Nothing's ever going to change for me. Or do I agree with the victory of Christ? Do I agree and identify with the victory of Christ, that I am a victor in Christ, that I overcome in Christ, that I persevere in Christ, that when I feel weak, I'm strong in Him, right? That when I can't see anything, He lights my path. He took it all on the cross for you. So whether it's bullying, gang stalking, oppression, witchcraft, rejection, whatever it is, poverty, whatever it is, He gave you a life through His own so that you could persevere through Him. I want you guys to really understand this, that He can give you life and life more abundantly, but you have to identify with Him and not with what has been going on in your life. So when you feel despair, He's your hope. When you feel broke and you can't pay your finances, right? He was made poor so you could be rich. He's your provider. When you feel sick in your body, He's your healer. Gang stalking is nothing to the Lord. Oppression is nothing to the Lord. Witchcraft is nothing to the Lord. But what are you identifying with? The beginning of your journey to who you really are is in him. It was always in him. It will always be in him. That is your answer. Christ is the greatest example of knowing exactly who you are in the Lord, of knowing your identity and staying solid in it for the rest of your life. I mean, here you have the King of the Jews, the actual Messiah for the whole of creation, right? For the whole of humankind. Here you have the actual Messiah. He's being mocked by people, broken down by people, called a fraud by people, right? At some point, they even called him Beelzebub, calling him a devil, right? And he still stood on who he was till the day he rose again. You see, Jesus knew who he was, right? Just look at this verse, John 10:17-19. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I receive from my Father. See, he knew exactly who he was. He knew the authority he had. He knew what he could do. Here's another verse where they've come to capture Jesus, and one of his disciples cuts the ear of the officer, right? And Jesus says this to him. This is Matthew 26:52-54. Put your sword in its place, Jesus said to him. For all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? But how then will the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen in this way? See, even when things are happening in his life, he knew his response. He knew how to respond because he knew who he was. He knew his assignment. He knew what he was here to do. Now, we're not Jesus. We're not going to the cross. But what I'm saying to you, when you go through afflictions, Christ told you you're going to go through trials and tribulations. Don't think too much of it. It's actually because you're blessed, and it's actually because you're in me. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. Right? So when things are happening to you, if you know who you are, you know how to respond. See, Jesus knew who he was because he got everything about himself from the Lord. Not what people were saying, not the world, but from God. He knew the word. He read the word. He understood his authority, the same authority that we have in Christ. So it's important for us to read this word to understand the manual of how we're supposed to be Christian, how we're supposed to be believers, what we have at our disposal. See how he said, don't you know that I can call on the angels, that the Lord will send them down to me to deal with all of this? He knew he could do that. But in that situation, he said, I can't do that. I don't want to do that because I know how this is supposed to go. But there obviously are situations when that can be something that could be your go-to, to call for the angels to deal with things for you. But if you don't know that, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to pray the right warfare prayers at the right times if you don't know the word, if you don't know what weapons are at your disposal. See, a lot of us go through so much, we end up with fragmented souls, traumatized, double-minded, unstable in everything we do. Right? You know you're supposed to be someone. You know you're supposed to be somewhere. You know you're great. You know you have a purpose. God made you for something. Right? You're important to this world. You have an impact to make. Right? But your neighborhood, your friends, your family members, the people around you, right? The people who you grew up with, they told you you're nothing. They put it into your head. A lot of the times, life in general and everyone in it will cause you to come to the conclusion that your life isn't going anywhere. And some people don't mean you bad, right? It's just the things that people say sometimes. It's the things that people do sometimes that can cause you to just lose faith in who you are as a person. Right? And you might know the word. You might have grown up in church. You know no weapon formed against you can prosper. You know that the Lord died for you. You know you have a purpose. You know he made you. Right? He knew you before you were in your mother's womb. He knew you. You know all of this stuff, but it's the trauma. It's the things that you go through in your life, the conditioning. Life conditions you to become a victim, to look at this thing as things are happening to me and there's nothing I can do to change it. But the truth is, you have all the power to change it, but you have to believe. And it starts with just that belief, that seed of believing. If you can do that and water that seed every day, Stay firm in that. Persist in that. You will see the change in your life. I'm here to tell you, you have a choice. And deep down, you know that. You know you have a choice. This isn't your life. Your life is made for more than this. You have a choice. So I want you to make that choice today. To not focus on everything that's overwhelming, not focus on the past, on the trauma, and all that stuff. I want you to focus and be still and focus on how good God is, that He has a purpose for you, that He made you with a purpose, that He has a plan for you, not to harm you, but to give you a hope and a future. I want you to focus on that and believe that the Lord is going to guide you and shine the light on the purpose for your life, the path you're supposed to walk down. I want that to be your new meditation. That's what you think on. You don't think about gang stalking. You don't think about people hating on you. You don't think about what people said about you. You think about what the Lord has said about you. You think about what the Lord has for you, the good things that He has for you. And even if you can't see it, I want that to be your new meditation, the things you're thinking. Because as a man thinketh, so he is. What you think matters. So that's what I want you to think on. You know, it might seem to you like you've wasted your time. It might seem to you like it's too late. It might seem to you like things are never going to change, right? But guess what? There's a promise for that as well. This is Joel chapter 2, verse 25 to 27. Listen to this. So I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten, the crawling locust, the consuming locust, the chewing locust, my great army which I sent among you. And you shall eat in plenty and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Lord your God, who has dealt wondrously with you. And my people shall never be put to shame. Then you shall know that I am in the midst of Israel. I am the Lord your God, and there is no other. My people shall never be put to shame. But you have to believe. That's a promise. But you have to believe. God redeems the times. He redeems the times. God can do in 1 year, in 1 day, in 1 week, in 1 month, what you couldn't do in 50. Look, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it doesn't come with its challenges. I'm not saying you're not going to meet resistance. But what I am saying to you is it not worth it? Is it not worth knowing who the Lord made you to be? Is it not worth pursuing that for the rest of your life? That journey to who He made you to be. Is it not worth it to go on a journey of self-discovery, discovering who you really are? The real you. The you that's always been in you from the foundations of the earth. Stay blessed.